So the lower slopes of Mount St. Helens are this gorgeous temperate zone rainforest. And you see these throughout the Pacific Northwest. Once you get above a certain elevation though, the trees slowly thin out. Down here you've got different types of fir trees, pine trees, a lot of evergreen trees, trees that stay green year round. Once I get above about 5,000 feet, all this vegetation will quickly kind of dissipate out, and I'll just be out on exposed mountain slope. It's also where the slope gets really steep, so trees and vegetation have a tough time surviving up there. What's really interesting is we have a number of different rock types around here. The darker materials, basalt, and some of this intermediate gray color stuff. It's more andesitic. And neither of those rock types are really associated with explosive eruptions. The explosive 1980 eruption was not basalt or andesite. It was more rhyolitic in composition. And so those differences show you one single volcano can have significantly different compositions as it goes through its different eruptive cycles over a long period of time, thousands of years, perhaps up to even millions of years. So pretend you've been hiking all day and you knew there was a bathroom up here. You know what would be very upsetting? The world's most isolated, out of order sign. So Mount St. Helens is really a popular climbing spot for folks year round, including in the winter, even when it's snow covered. And they have the same problem that Mount Everest does. And that's that there's a lot of human waste. So while Mount Everest is still trying to deal with their waste problem, Mount St. Helens and many other peaks have instituted the blue bag. And they've also put bathrooms or pit toilets in pretty accessible spots, except that one. And it's out of order. So if you come up here, make sure to grab a blue bag. Now these dark chunks of rock. This is a classic basalt, and the little vugs that we see in there are called vesicles. And then there's also some crystals in there. The little kind of light gray specks are crystals, and those are probably a feldspar crystal. And there's tons of this stuff here. So, and then there's some more intermediate gray stuff that's probably more classified as an andesite. It's lighter gray. Still has those crystals in there, those little specks. Doesn't have the vesicles like we see with the basalt. But that basalt I just held up back there looks identical to the basalts that you would see in Hawaii. Almost no different. And so again, that's just showing you some of the compositional variability you get in these stratovolcanic systems. More basalt and andesite. Basalt is the darker, and then the more red rusted one And the lighter gray is the andesite. But I'm not seeing anything that's really rhyolitic in composition, like what we think of as more explosive composition lavas. So this whole slope is dominated by that. It's also dominated by incredible views. So now I've hit the ash and pumice deposits, but I'm starting to see, hard to stand still, starting to see the top of the mountain up there. So a lot of these older andesite blocks, which are the kind of intermediate or medium grade blocks, are about 500 years old. They erupted about 1500 to 1600 AD. But those were flows over there. So these have been broken up by years of erosion. And then also during the 1980 eruption, any of this material that was at the top would have been ejected when Mount St. Helens erupted. And that's why you got a lot of this stuff mixed together. After the eruption, there were lahars, volcanic mud flows that came through here and washed a lot of this material out. But you've got a lot of mixed stuff here. That's a little piece of pumice that is very light. May have come from the 1980 eruption, mixed with some basalt here. This basalt is about 2,000 years old. It's similar in composition and age to the caves, the lava tubes we saw down slope. And then you've got the more intermediate, medium grade material. And so you've got all three major volcanic compositions. You have andesite, you have more rhyolitic material, rhyolite, that's the light colored pumice, the little chunks. Here's a piece. Really light, almost easy, just easy to destroy, weighs nothing. And then the really iron and magnesium rich basalt, all in the same volcano. So currently working through this snowfield and boulder field, trying to get up to the next marker post. So pretty slick. Pretty slippery, but not too bad. So, Mount Hood in the background. And then can't see Mount Adams anymore. It's over there. And then not too far that way is the Pacific Ocean. Actually, where you can see another little set of mountains out there. After that drop off, it's not much further to the coast, and you can see how far we've come up. So, quite a day's work today. Hauling upward. And we're not even close to done. Here's a USGS monitoring station. Oh, here, that is a tilt meter right there. And they've got the tilt meter down to the ground. so the tilt meter can detect little small movements. There's something you don't see every day. I was wondering what that was. It is ice that has accumulated on the side of one of the marker posts. Look at that. Getting close to the final push. There's a nice, well-defined ridge run here. It looks like that's the crater rim up there. I've probably got about 1,000 feet to go, and that looks about 1,000 feet. So, gonna shoot this ridge less than a mile out, but less than a mile and 1,000 feet can definitely hurt the feelings. So, just gonna keep trekking at it and hope the snow doesn't get softer. Soft snow isn't the worst thing coming down. It's terrible going up. As you take one step, you just keep sliding. Kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of deal. And the elevation's about 7,200 feet, which again isn't the worst. It's a little higher than the city of Denver, but it's not that bad. There's a lot of higher peaks out there. This one, you just start a little lower. Must be getting steeper because I haven't seen anybody all day really in front of me, and now everybody seems to be really getting stacked up on this last push. So time to put the go shoes on. Really give it all I got to get up there. It's not been too bad so far as mountain climbing goes. Haven't had to use any of the gear, so it's not so snowy. I'm gonna put on my micro spikes to give me extra traction. I'm gonna wait a little longer. Here we go, final push. Started to really find this really light pumice. I mean, this is really light stuff. You know, this pumice, really light in color, really easy to break, and really full of little air pockets. It's just everywhere. We haven't really seen any of that until now. And those air pockets represent gas trying to rapidly escape from the rock during the eruption. And so these little pumice represent lava that cooled very quickly as it was erupted, probably during the 1980 eruption, and landed here within a couple hundred yards. Remember, we're on the south side. The volcano erupted to the north, so most of the material is pushed to the north. We're going to go up there and look at a lot of that material, but on the south side, ejecta only landed a couple hundred yards from the central vent during the 1980 eruption. Here to the true summit. It's pretty windy, so I've put my mask on. beautiful. It's pretty windy. It's not all that cold. Just the wind is really kicked up. So it appears that I may be the first person up here today, because old, and I was told it snowed earlier this week, and none of these tracks were made really any time recently. So definitely first person up today. So I'm walking the crater rim, Mount St. Helens. If I'd have been here in 1975, 1980, this mountain would have continued another 1,300 feet up into the air. The 1980 eruption removed all this material and exploded the majority of it. The landslide was on the north side, it dropped and fell and moved that way, and then the eruption took the rest of the material. And then there's the resurgent dome, which has all been since 1980 eruption, rebuilding of the volcano. But it's incredible to think how much more mountain was here and has now been removed and was violently swept down slope, all in the course of really a couple hours. Most of it was removed, in fact, in a couple seconds. An incredible amount of power in this eruption. Looking down into the crater is impressive. There's a lot of things going on down there. For starters, you can see right down at the base there's blocks. Those are rocks that have fallen. If we pan over to the left side, way in the distance, right in here, you can see big cracks. Those cracks are occurring when the ground underneath is moving around, and it causes the rock and the ice and snow on top to crack and create those big open fractures there. And so it tells you that side of the volcano is probably pushing up and kind of bowing up, just like how your fingers, the tops of your knuckles expand when you kind of flex your fingers. And it seemed like that rock over there is bowing up. This huge component down here, this big hill in the middle, that is what's called the resurgent dome. The resurgent dome has built itself back since 1980, and you can see steam coming out of it, and that steam is from superheated water and gas down below, interacting with the magma chamber and escaping through little vents or fumaroles at the surface. And so this is a very active volcano. It's easy to see too, because the gas coming out of there is probably around 90 degrees Celsius, so close to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and the wind temperature up here is probably 40 degrees or less. All right, let's get to the summit. And you can see those radial fractures that are radiating away from the, it's very clear now. Couldn't see that from over on the other spot, but you can see the radial fractures down below, how they radiate away from the resurgent dome. As it bows up, they're fracturing away to accommodate that space. Really, really beautiful shot here down, and to see the radial fractures that are extending out away from the resurgent dome, and the resurgent dome with steam coming out of some of the fumaroles down there. And then in the distance, obscured in the clouds, that is Mount Rainier, another stratovolcano. This is always fun, descending into the clouds. You see some really light cloud cover kind of moving in on the trail, and in probably a couple hundred feet I'll be in the clouds, and so that'll be nice, because that will mean I have some sun protection. And to be honest, I'm a little warm right now because it's not the coolest. But yeah, right down in that valley, should be out of the exposure into the clouds. I hope they hang on for maybe about an hour. It shouldn't take me more than an hour once I get down to the clouds. I'm still wandering through this snowy boulder field. So I've still got my micro spikes on, or my yak tracks. They're little springs that give you extra traction in snow, and they're really useful in this mixed terrain where you go from snow to ice to rock to ice, back and forth. They give you good traction on anything, and they're really durable. So I'm slowly trying to follow the yellow brick road on in, and I can see the next waypoint just in front of me. This is probably the most dangerous part of any climb, is the down, because there's the next waypoint and there's another group down there. But there's some really cool ropey lava textures, and some of the basalt really neat. 2 mile part of the trail. So overall a really fun hike and incredible opportunity to see one of the great geologic features in North America. And having grown up in the 80s, you know, Mount St. Helens was one of the big keystone geologic phenomena that everybody knew about. And so Mount St. Helens was one of the things that got me interested in geology. So I've spent a lot of time wanting to go look at Mount St. Helens and see it for myself. So that was an incredible opportunity, kind of a bucket list thing for me and for a lot of geologists, because a lot of geologists grew up hearing about it at Mount St. Helens. The whole country kind of stopped when that happened. So, but as far as the hike goes, this was I'd probably call this a medium level difficulty hike. There were some parts where if you didn't know what you were doing, you could have some problems. I saw some folks kind of get lost and turned around and couldn't find the trail. So you got to know what you're doing out here, and you need to have the 10 essentials of hiking. Notably, and I bet no one on that mountain except me had a compass and a map. Those are crucial, and those folks that got kind of turned around from the trail, if they had a map, they could have figured out how to get back on the trail. In fact, in the last group I saw, they were only 10 feet from the trail, but they were kind of paralyzed. They didn't really know where to go. They had stopped. They knew they weren't on the trail, and they had frozen. And so, I mean, I actually just kind of walked right past them on the trail, and I think they saw where it was and then were able to correct. But if they had a map, they could have seen that the trail was on the east side of the little ridge instead of the west side, which is where they were kind of wandering around. But and there's a lot of people still out here, so I think I was the first. A lot of people turned around at the crater. They didn't go to the summit, but there were no snow prints fresh enough to have had anybody up on the summit today. So there's this challenging hike up to the crater rim, and then you have to go over and go up to the summit. So another probably half mile. And you know, I've passed a lot of folks. A lot of folks are still out here, and it's already 2:15. So, you know, if they don't really hurry up, the folks back there, they're going to be flirting with darkness. And being out here in the dark is not something you want to do, but you're always prepared to do it. So one of the 10 essentials is a light source. So everybody out here, they probably don't, but they should have a light source. That way, if you do get stuck out here a little late, it's not that big a deal. You just put your headlamp on, you walk right out. You never rely on your cell phone. Your cell phone is not a flashlight. It is a communication device. So one of the most dangerous things you can do is rely on your cell phone for your flashlight, because now you've exhausted your ability to call for help. It's absolutely the worst thing you could do. But Most of these folks will get out of here in time. A couple folks may be a little late, but it's a really nice walk out. It's kind of cool. As far as a mountain climb, which I would kind of rank differently than hikes. Hikes are going to be you know, anything from a hike at the park to, you know, a more strenuous hike like this. As far as a mountain climb goes, which is the mountain we was climbing, it was not very challenging. Probably like a 2 on the mountain climb scale. But that said, if you've never climbed mountains before, don't go do this on your own without somebody that knows what they're doing. But other than that, good day. So I'll be out here in about 10-15 minutes.